What's up, guys? Hope you're having a good Saturday today. It is December 10th, and this is Newswave. So, guys, I want to start Newswave off today, basically about a topic that was kind of bothering me all day when I was reading about it, and that is about the Zelda game that's coming out for the Switch. Now, a lot of people have basically dissected the footage from Fallon's entire experience with it, Jimmy Fallon, where he was, using it, playing Zelda and everything, and they found out that the Fallon show is actually shooting that at 60 frames. If you go online, you can even see it. And they actually figured out from that footage that Zelda is running at 30 frames a second. Now, it's not a big deal if it's running at 30 frames. It's not. A lot of people seem to have this thought in their head that this system has to run Zelda at 60 frames, or it's essentially underpowered and not a good system. Or they're saying that Zelda needs to run at 30 frames, or it's not a good game. And this is where it's kind of getting me. I see this a lot. If you go on any of the news sites that reported this, pretty much everyone says, oh, I'm not going to buy it, it's not running at 60 frames. Well, that kind of bothers me because, honestly, if 60 frames is that big of a deal to you, then why are you buying a console? Why aren't you going out and building a $1,200 to $1,300 computer? And if your gameplay experience is that affected by frame rate, then you must have never played any games back in the day, back on the Super Nintendo 64. Any of those, the Zelda games on the 64 usually ran at times sub 30 frames a second. Very rarely were they. And keep in mind, guys, they are trying to build a game that just has a massive scope. We're looking at a game that's a very large open world adventure game. Now, it's not easy to run those at 60 frames. I mean, keep in mind, even though Skyrim went from the 360 to the Xbox One and the PS3 to the PS4, it didn't get an overhaul to 60 frames. It still ran at 30 frames and people didn't mind it. So I'm not sure why Zelda has kind of caught a lot of flack for this. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why does it matter so much that you're willing to not buy a game because it's not 60 frames a second, it's stuck at 30? Not a big deal. Honestly, 60 frames is great. However, there's always that time where it dips. Wouldn't you rather have an experience that is a solid 30 than a 45 to 60 frame experience? Because even if something is said to be 60 frames across the board, very rarely will it stay at 60 frames. To be honest, it'll drop down to 50, might drop down into the 40s, and then it'll go back up. It depends on what's happening on screen a lot of times. Now, if you have a beast of a computer and it's always over 60 frames and you just cap it at 60, then you're good. But even a lot of the newer systems with games that say they're 60 frames will have those occasional dips. I would prefer it if they can't get it at a solid 60 across the board, which means it's probably above 60 most times. Cap it at 30, make it a very smooth experience, and I'm fine with that. I don't see why people are so upset about 30 frames for Zelda. I think that in their mind that the Switch is underpowered because it's not running at 60 frames. But keep in mind, and all the Wii U footage we saw before, it struggled to keep anywhere near 30 frames like every time. A lot of times it would dip really bad and people would point it out. Now we have a system that you can take on the go and has a clean 30 frames across the board from what we could see, even with the explosions and things happening, and people are still complaining. It makes no sense. Be happy with 30 frames, not a big deal, just go enjoy the game. And with that, we're gonna go to some troubling news here. Crytek has apparently not been paying employees at all now recently. There's been a lot of leaks coming out from employees on things like Glassdoor, for example, where you can basically go on there and talk about your employer without them knowing who you are. Now, keep in mind that can also kind of turn into people going on there and making stories up. But we've also had people come out on things like Reddit and Twitter, and again, Glassdoor, where they actually are talking about not being paid by Crytek again. And apparently Crytek is coming out on company calls and stuff, explaining, well, not really explaining, but saying that they're trying to take care of it. And this is troubling because they ran into this exact same issue in 2014 where they were not paying their employees then either. There's a couple employees that are saying that they have not been paid since September, and I don't really know why you keep going to work 2 months later if you're not being paid. At that point, the first 2 weeks, two pay periods not being paid, really you should be out there looking for another job, because if a company cannot pay its employees, that means that there is major cash flow issues that is spelling disaster for that company, whether it means they have to either cut a huge amount of jobs, or they have to close their doors eventually, or an office has to be shut down. Something has to give for them to be able to pay their employees. The money does not come out of thin air. Crytek did a couple games, I think, recently, but nothing groundbreaking. No Crisis game or anything's come out. And I don't know what their issue is. Maybe they're overstaffed and they do need to let people go. But you really shouldn't be leading your employees on to this point because they're just now apparently getting paid from, in December, early December, now getting paid from October. I don't know a lot of people can live like that either, survive for months without being paid if you're still going to your 9-to-5 job. It's insane, but it's bad news for Crytek. Apparently they're trying to get it resolved. Money doesn't come out of thin air, like I said, though, so either jobs need to disappear, they either need to go get a loan from somewhere, whether it be a bank loan or borrow money, or start shutting their doors. So in 2014, they had to do a lot of restructuring to fix it. Maybe that's what they have to do again, but you can only restructure so many times, again, before you go out of business. So hopefully they get it figured out, but there's a good chance that this could be getting close to the end for Crytek unless something big turns around for them. Hey guys, some of you may know I'm actually a big fan of playing Grand Theft Auto 5. I play it online a lot. I'll do a lot of single player. I've been doing a lot of single player recently, and I always like to look at the mods. There's some really cool ones. Well, one came out recently that was kind of caught my attention because it looked like it had a lot of attention to detail to it. I'm gonna put some screenshots up here right now, and this mod you're seeing now is basically the product of a modder named Raised, and this is a new graphical mod for GTA 5 that is basically going to try to make it look as photorealistic as possible. GTA 4 kind of had some of these mods, but this one here is kind of a combination of a bunch of mods and then their own kind of spin on it. And they said they've taken over 400 hours of time to work on this. And it looks really cool. It's just going to be a fully, like basically fully reskinned, reimagined part of GTA 5, and it's going to look really good. I'm actually looking forward to it. I'll be downloading it, installing it when I get a chance, and just checking it out. But it's pretty awesome to see this in GTA 5. It's probably one of the best games to mod next to like Skyrim or Fallout. I really enjoy a lot of the mods they do. This is just going to take it to another level. So if you're a big fan of GTA 5, I would check this out just so you can try out some of the new photorealistic mods and everything. So guys, if you didn't know, Miyamoto has a very weird hobby that he likes. It's interesting, it's different, but basically his hobby is to guess how big something is through a measurement, whether it be in inches or feet, depending on how large it is. As long as he can measure it, he'll try to guess it. And then what he does is, after guessing, whether he writes it down or kind of has it in his head, he'll actually go to it and measure it and see how close he was. And apparently, because of this hobby, or this obsession as they've called it before, because he'll literally do that constantly, he's actually gotten really good at eyeballing basically different items around him and saying this is 8 inches, this is 4 inches, this is 2 feet. He's got to the point where he can actually look at stuff and tell you how big it is. Apparently on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, he actually was sitting there and actually measuring, eyeballing things, and actually was getting a lot of it right. There's some screenshots that's pretty funny, him like doing like a pizza, things like that. So, it's kind of a cool hobby. It's kind of neat. He also jammed out with the Roots, I think, which is pretty cool too. But it's an interesting hobby to see. I've read about it before, but I kind of thought maybe he stopped doing it. But no, there he is on Jimmy Fallon's show doing it, so that's pretty funny. Next up, guys, is actually a pretty creative piece. I like to put these kind of up here because if I see people kind of doing some really cool creative things with like resources they have, whether it be 3D printing, stuff like that, I like to kind of bring some light to it. And this is really cool. This is from somebody on Reddit, and what they did was they wanted to solve the age-old problem, well, at this point age-old problem of using a touchscreen phone when you're playing something like a Game Boy emulator or Super Nintendo emulator. In this case, this was to solve his, I assume, Pokemon obsession on his phone and make it so you're actually using physical controls, because those touch screen, they're just not very good. You don't know all the time where you're pressing. You kind of have to be looking at it a lot, and there's no way to feel where you're pressing, whether it be A or B. But this is cool. Check this out. So he actually designed this in 3D printing, using, I guess, one of his better 3D printers. And what he did was he actually ran copper wire around to make the connection when you press it. So it has like the rubber membrane on the back, and then it has copper wire that runs through it. And basically, this is called the MU case. And Gabalago made it on Reddit. That's his username. And they decided to create a personalized one. I assume you could probably modify this for different phones as well. And it's pretty cool. I don't know if they've released any kind of model to do it so that we could download. I'll check. I don't have a 3D printer. My brother actually got one recently, so maybe I'll see if he can print it, if it's attainable, if I can get the files or anything, or maybe he can make it in CAD. It's just a really cool idea, and I just wanted you guys to check it out. And guys, this is our last bit of news. It's pretty big. I wanted to save it for the end just so I didn't kind of ramble too long in the beginning. This bit of news and this idea kind of was brought up to me by a Twitter user. He's been dealing with me for a while. He's really cool. He sent me a lot of cool messages here and there. His name is Brian Brammer. So Brian, thank you for this. I just wanted to say that Basically, what we're talking about here is we're talking about the DRM that's come out recently as being a function for Super Mario Run. And this has kind of thrown people kind of through the loop here. If you don't know what DRM stands for, it actually stands for Digital Rights Management. And the idea of DRM, and it's been around for a while now actually, I've been dealing with it for a long time, but the idea is to authenticate your copy of the game by calling back to the server, and basically it just identifies and says, yes, you're good, you've purchased this game, go ahead and play it. And a lot of people don't like that because it's, well, one, it's kind of a hindrance because usually you have to be connected to the internet when it makes the callback. People seem to get the idea that you always have to be connected. You don't always have to be connected. Sometimes what will happen is it'll make certain callbacks at certain times. For example, there's a game that I play on my phone. Some of you guys might know it because it's the biggest time sink ever for me, but it's Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, okay? And some of you guys are probably like, oh, I play it. It's pretty big, but it's Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, and what happens is it makes callbacks at different times. For example, when I start like a match or like a part of the adventure mode, as soon as the board loads and all the characters are there, I'm good to play if I'm offline until I finish the battle, and it has to make a callback to the servers. So during that entire time, I don't have to technically be connected to the internet. Now, the matches only last like 5 minutes, 10 minutes on the hardest ones, and then it has to call back, so usually you do want to be connected, and it's not a big deal because it's on my phone. Mario Run, it won't be a big deal because most people are going to be using it on iPhones. That looks to be how it's set up. If you're using it on a tablet, most times you are connected to the internet with your tablet as well. If you're on a plane, they usually have Wi-Fi. Sometimes they don't, I get that. If you're on a bus, they even have Wi-Fi now, believe it or not. But usually you are connected to the internet, and it's not a big deal. And that's the reason Mario Run has it. They want to make sure, look, they're not doing a free-to-play game, and like I said before, I commend them for that, to just get a set amount of money from people and not try to keep hitting them with crazy amounts of fees going forward for advantages in the game, for example. I like that they're just releasing a straight-up game. You buy it, it's $10. That's not expensive. I mean, let's be honest here. It's, you know, a sixth of the price of a full game, and will you get $10 of enjoyment out of it? Probably. But besides the point of that, you have to be connected to the internet. Not a big deal. They want to stop piracy. It's not easy to pirate on an iPhone. It probably has become easier. It's definitely a lot easier on an Android phone because once you root it and you can start loading APKs, it becomes extremely easy. An APK is an install file, essentially. You're taking it and you're installing it to your phone. So I get why they don't want to put it on Android right away. There was a game I bought a while ago called Chrono Trigger. You guys know that. It was on the Android store. After certain chapters, it made a callback to the server. I think it was like after like the first chapter, it would go ahead and call back to the server, like when you go back in time. And then it would basically authenticate and say, yes, you own this, you purchased it. A lot of people were mad about that, but they got over it because they understood why it was there. You have to understand they're trying to protect their assets here. They don't want people to just get the game for free because that's technically stealing and it's wrong. Not a big deal on a phone. I mean, let's be honest here. If you have an iPhone, you're probably always connected to the internet. You're in some way. And because when it does these checks, it's kilobytes of data. It's not a big deal. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense why people are mad about it. I can see why they're annoyed about it. Yes, it's an annoyance. It's an extra thing they have to do. But interesting thing we could take from this, though, guys. If Nintendo is interested in DRM and they want to move it to the Switch, people are worried about this. Oh no, what if they put it on the Switch? How am I going to play my game on the go? This is where it gets interesting, because remember how we talked about, like a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Switch possibly having some other way to connect to the internet, whether it be through like a 4G or a 3G connection. And if you are always connected to a server for kilobytes of data just for DRM, maybe you can't even use it like just for, let's say, you can't use it for multiplayer, you can't use it to browse the shop, but you can if you want to. So you buy data, of course, but the authentication service through DRM is free because it's kilobytes of data. Nintendo just eats that cost to protect their assets. That makes this interesting because that actually could be, to me, a proof that there is 4G in the Switch if they go the DRM route. They would not, I don't see any reason why Nintendo would tether you at all to your household with this item when they want you to leave with it. They want you to go places with your tablet, your portable system, and basically use it in the world is what they want you to do. That's why it's portable. They won't stick DRM on this unit unless it has a way to connect to the server, which could be a 4G or a 3G connection. Keep in mind, 3G could do it fine. It's kilobytes of data. 3G's cheap. Nintendo could eat that cost easily and protect their assets. It's worth it in the long run. It's almost like paying somebody as loss prevention in a big store, if you think about it that way. So I don't think DRM is coming to the Switch. I don't see why they would do that for a system they want you to go portable with, unless they have the idea that 4G or 3G is a way to authenticate it. But still, there are people out there in the world who don't have 4G where they live, whether you're in the middle of Kansas or something like that. You don't always have a connection. They would have to come up with a way like Steam, where you have to connect every like 3 or 4 days or something like that. You know what I mean? Just authenticate what you have. That way, if you have to go away, you get on a plane, you could still use it. So, interesting thoughts though. I don't mind the idea of DRM if there's a way to always be connected. If there's no way to always be connected, it makes no sense, and I don't see them doing it. So, but guys, that's gonna do it for tonight. And guys, before we sign off here, I just want to throw one more piece of news at you. It's pretty cool. I've also played a lot of Skyrim in the past. I played Oblivion and a little bit of Morrowind. Morrowind was a little out there for me because the combat was so bad. I really liked Oblivion though. I had that on my 360 back in the day and loved the game. But what I really like is there is a group of people who is bringing Oblivion back to Skyrim. They're basically modding Skyrim up. They actually put a new trailer out today. I'll show you that now. They're actually bringing Oblivion back by modding Skyrim to be as close to Oblivion as possible, whether it be weapons, character models, scenery, the setting, castles, everything. I don't know if they'd be able to do the Oblivion gates per se. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it is. But man, it looks awesome. It looks like Oblivion, but it's going to use Skyrim's combat, which is great, and maybe the dragons are still in it. I don't know. I was pretty excited to see it. As soon as it's available. I know they've been working on it forever. As soon as it's available, it's going on my computer and I'm playing it. But that'd be really cool though if it does show up on the Xbox One and the PS4. I know the PS4 would probably not be doable because they only use assets in the game, and I know there's a lot of assets going into this mod that aren't in the game. But I can see it go into the Xbox One, and of course it'll be on our computer. So I'll be checking it out. I just wanted to make you guys aware of this because it looks really neat, and no release date that I know of right now. Maybe there's an alpha out there, but check it out. I'll let you guys know when it is available. I'll put it up on my Twitter so you can check it out. But definitely look at the trailer and see what you guys think. I'm pretty excited about this. And guys, that's gonna do it for Newswave today. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Apparently YouTube's new algorithm says that you need to have X amount of likes to be popular. I don't know. So I guess like the video a lot. I don't know. But yeah, guys, I will see you next time. I know tomorrow we're going to do a new Nintendo Switch's cousin. That's coming tomorrow. And like I said, I really want to do a discussion on the RAM in the Switch. That's either coming tomorrow or Monday. And then I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow night for more Newswave.